Grace Ravenscroft by H. M. Gaskell. H. M. Gaskell is the pen name of Gordon Tickle. Copyright 2023. All rights reserved. Chapter 1. Grace and her family lived in the small mill town of Atherton, deep in the heart of Lancashire, northern England. The employment opportunities were limited. It was the mill, the mines, or the land, all owned by the wealthy gentry. Her home, such as they were, arose of brick-built, back-to-back terraced houses, perhaps 20 in each block, 2 rooms upstairs and 2 rooms downstairs, complete with roofs of blue slate mined from the vast quarries of North Wales. The slate kept the rain out, but did little to keep any heat in or the winter's chill at bay. The streets were either paved with cobblestones hewn from granite or plain old dirt, muddy in the rain or dusty in the summer. Toilet blocks were communal and could be as much as a 50-yard walk down a back entry. Hence, every home, every bedroom had a chamber pot for the nighttime emergency. Children played in the streets, made up games, usually hide and seek, skipping with an old rope. All these pastimes were no-cost games, apart from a little imagination and effort. The clothes were hand-me-downs from older sisters, brothers or cousins. Nothing was wasted. Even old woolen jumpers was unpicked and reknitted into overblankets, placed on top of the beds for cold winter's nights. Grace's mother had died in childbirth a year past, and Grace stepped into the role of big sister and mother to her 2 young siblings. Her father James, Jim to his friends, was a good worker. All Jim's life was spent down the pit, digging for black gold, Lancashire's coal. Coal to power the steam engines that drove the great ocean liners for the rich, or the migrants that crossed the seas seeking a different life in the new world. Coal that powered the huge mills. Coal that warmed the hearths of even the poorest of living rooms. Coal that heated the water for the once-a-week bath night. The tin bath was brought out and placed in front of the fire. One by one, they bathed in the same water, commencing with the youngest first, till all had washed a week's grime from their poor bodies. They were as poor as church mice as a family, but could survive on Jim's wages, until the day of a collapse at the mine, and Jim was trapped, crushed by a huge slab of coal and the resulting slag. His friends scrambled at the falling debris, clawing at every piece, as this was a race against time. "Get him out quickly!" He was rescued, but badly hurt, and James would never work again. No welfare, no compensation, just plain bad luck and a grim future. The news hit Grace like a thunderbolt, as she was barely 13 years of age. However, she knew the situation of food, rent, clothes and the life-giving coal needed to heat the one room they all huddled into in the evenings. And more preciously, the fire, the Lancashire range, the large cast iron fireplace complete with swing-over iron castings that the pans would go on to make the meals, along with the combined oven that made their daily bread. That night, she put the children to bed and entered into her father's room. Jim was on the bed, unable to move. "Dad," said Grace, "Murray tells me they're taking on girls at Victoria Mill in Atherton." She knew it was the work or the poorhouse, and the family would be separated. "Nay, lass, there's enough to do with yon young uns," Jim said. Grace was of slight build, blonde hair, green eyes, and very pretty despite her shabby dress. But a steely determination had welled up inside her tiny frame. "No, Dad, we need the money," Jim said. "Lass, the overseer at Victoria Mill is Briggs. You know he is quick-tempered and quick with his fists. Lad or lass, makes no difference to Briggs. He will lash out. And Briggs had a fancy for the young girls working under him, my little angel, and I am in no position to protect you from him." The day came that Grace would rise early, dress and make the fire. Tea and toast for the young ones. Tea and toast for Jim in his bedroom. It was November, and the cold winter's chill with icy blasts whipping down the cobble streets. There was only candlelight in the tiny house, as they could not afford oil for the lamp. Grace lifted one hand behind the flame and blew it out, knowing that her charges would at least be able to dress in front of the fire when they came downstairs. It was with trepidation she closed the door behind her and entered the icy world outside. She pulled her shawl tight around her shoulders and stepped out onto her first journey to the mill. Victoria Mill, her family's only hope of staying together. There was a gas lamp on the street corner that played tricks with the shadows of the early morning. The frost glinted upon the cobbles and made patterns upon the window panes. Other people were leaving their homes and making their way to the mill. Young Jimmy Monk called out, "Hey up, Grace! Art thou started at mill today, lass?" Jimmy was a year older and had been a barrow boy at the mill for a year now. His job to fetch cotton for spinning to the machines that the operators could work on. Spinning, 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 never stopping, expertly tying thread that had broken. This was to be Grace's new job. Grace was apprehensive, as she had never been inside an industrial building, let alone operated a machine. And then there was Briggs. Briggs the bully, Briggs the bruiser, Briggs the brawler on a Saturday night, drunk from ale at the Spinner's Arms, a public house directly across the road from the mill. Briggs was over 6 feet tall and weighed some 15 stone, a big man for the day. He had scruffy hair and carried a stick of oak that resembled a club. Briggs strutted around the mill floor like a sergeant major, crossed with a thug and a bulldog. When Briggs approached, people looked to the floor for fear of eye contact, for it was he who had the power of the mill owner, Mr. Pollard. The power to put a family in the workhouse or out on the street, as Briggs often doubled up as rent collector for Mr. Pollard, who also owned a large proportion of the terrace houses the workers lived in. Grace had never seen Briggs, but already she was terrified of his power, not for herself, but for her family that so depended upon her. Grace was of slight build, but fiercely independent and strong-willed, with a steely determination so rare in a girl of her day. It was November in the year 1910. Grace entered the mill floor. Each floor was 80 yards long by 50 yards wide, with windows all around. It was bedlam, noisy with shafts bolted on the steel girders running along the ceilings, spinning furiously fast, driving the machines by wide leather belts. People didn't speak as no one could be heard over the noise of the mill, but they communicated by lip reading, a skill Grace would have to learn, and learn quickly. The power that drove the shafts came from huge Lancashire boilers, coal-fired to produce steam. Steam that would drive the rams that would turn the great wheel housed in the rope race. The rope race was a narrow brick-built shaft that went from the cellar of the building right up to the top, with thick ropes and leather belts running at breakneck speed up from the driving drum wheel to each shaft in turn. The race was not a place to enter, as it was a fast-moving spider's web of death, dark, noisy and forbidding. Small boys, greasers, darted on the machines, dodging the belts and pulleys' vicious spinning wheels, their job to keep the shafts oiled and greased. The dust and the cotton fibres were heavy in the air, and Grace was mesmerised and terrified by the speed and sounds of this place. But the 13 shillings she could earn in a week would save her family. End of chapter 1.